Hey everybody, it's Kevin Hackenberg, and I am super excited to be back. It's 2021, and Christians Who Drink Whiskey is back. Some of you who are big fans have reached out to me and said, "What happened? Are you okay? Did you get COVID?" No, I just celebrated the year, and here we are, back. Christians Who Drink Whiskey, we're coming to you live. I'm super excited using the StreamYard podcasting, social media, streaming sites. So you should be seeing us on Funny&Amen's Facebook and my Facebook right now, live. It's fun. So 2020, great year. We spent a lot more time with our families than we expected, and that was nice. We also went into World War I reenactment mode, which did stylish gas masks and quarantines. So historical reenactors, watch out. We'll see you in the trenches of your historical reenactments. No, we pivoted. The amount of pivoting was unprecedented. I heard the basketball players were about to sue for overuse of their terminology, and no longer do basketball players have the corner on the word pivot or pivoting or pivoted or have pivoted. The amount of global pivoting was riveting. Anyway, 2020 at Funny&Amen, we released 37 amazing conversations called Christians Who Drink Whiskey and Their Open-Minded Friends. And many of our guests shared why they love Jesus or why his people drove them to drinking or just to leave the church. When asked our patented, "What do you think of Jesus?" mid-show question, our friend Jody Lauren Miller had a unique response and said she doesn't think of him at all, which I thought was very unique. I'm happy to report that Jody witnessed a peaceful transition of power a few days ago in America and reports on Twitter that now she believes there's a God. So we are making progress. Very exciting to report. But Christians Who Drink Whiskey and Their Open-Minded Friends podcast is not to convince others that God is real, or God's existence. It's not even to convince other people to drink whiskey, but that could be a side effect. Merely, we're just trying to take a pulse and get to know our guests and what they uniquely think about religion. So now's the time, since family discussions on politics might be the fast track to the next civil war. Now's the time we can carefully and lovingly and with humility start conversations about religion. I'm very excited about it. It's a much more interesting topic to me than politics. And with its evil stepbrother of conversation topics, talking politics at an all-time approval low, talking about religion and Jesus might just be welcome back at your dinner table. But you got to do it carefully, people. Stop preaching. Just have a good conversation like I'm about to do today with Manwell Reyes. He's in the waiting room. We'll be bringing Manwell on in a hot second. But first, a few announcements. We're live. Number one, we are live. So our guest, Manwell Reyes, coming up. We're live, people. If you want to give us some shout outs, ask questions, say hello, you can add them to the chat on Facebook. And Manuel and I should be able to see them and respond. Now, don't tell Manuel. He may be in the waiting room listening, but the truth be told, this is our first live stream podcast for Christians Drink Whiskey and Their Open-Minded Friends. So please let us know how it's going. We hope this format will be improvement to you and that you dig the interactivity. We want to also let you know that if you ever need to contact us, you can reach out to us at our email, funny&amen@gmail.com. We love talking to you, hearing from you, adding you to our mailing list. And if you want to support what we're doing, become a patron, patreon.com/funny&amen. There's lots of swag we give away over there, t-shirts, Christians Who Drink Whiskey mugs. I don't have Jesus action figures yet, but if you reach out to us, ask and we'll make that happen. So we're going live. What's the last announcement? I go one more. Oh, that's right. I'm really excited about this one. Our New Year's resolution this year, we're going to come up with a comedy show April 1st, April Fool's Day. We're taking over the holiday, and Funny&Amen and our patrons are gifting to the world some free joy via a live comedy show. Follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and tune in April 1st for some laughs. We're putting together our comedians now. So if you got a comedian you want to recommend, shoot us an email. Contact us to find out how you can get involved and spread joy and not germs. There's a lot of germ spreading this year, but we're done with that. I'm going to put up the list of patrons at the bottom. We're going to be scrolling. You're going to see we love our patrons over here, and that's about it. So on to bigger and better things. I'm going to talk to my guest. I'm going to bring him in. Manwell Reyes, welcome to the show.
What's up?
Yeah, man. Very excited to have you on here. So for those of you who don't know, Manwell rose to alleged fame as the frontman of a 5-time Dove award-winning Group 1 crew. I saw you guys at Creation a number of times back in the DA, and then you released some music under the title Pandas, the group Pandas, and now you continue to be a solo and collaborative music artist. There's some amazing new music. I was like deep diving in the last couple of days before we got together here. The Wild Ones, love Wild Ones. It's available on Spotify, and if you enjoy content of this podcast, you got to see Manwell's podcast called Knights of the Round Table.
Yes.
Manwell, welcome.
Thank you so much, bro. I'm laughing at the fact that you said Wild Ones was the one that you liked, because I got so much flack for that one.
Oh man! You don't know, man. I was really so I got dove in last night. I was just like just scrolling down, going deep history, and I saw you reaching out and reading some of the good press, the bad press, and in the same day with the Christians Who Drink Whiskey show, I connected. Right, you encouraged me. I think I sent you an email last night. In the same day, I had someone close to me. I don't have permission yet. I asked permission to say this, but I had someone close to me say, I can't support what you're doing. And from the same podcast, I had 3 people reach out to me and be like, what you're doing is so important.
Yeah.
I really have to come on your show and tell how you encouraged me to be more bold in my faith. And I was like, wow, it's so interesting how the same piece of content sends people in different directions. And I thought your response was good. Well, tell me about tell my viewers about you and what you're doing and how, and some of the, why, Group 1 crew was a straightforward Christian, hip hop, electronic kind of thing. And now where are you going now? Why have you ran astray, Manwell?
Why did I backslide? It's so funny because, when I was in Group 1 crew, before Group 1 crew, I was just a thug. I literally was a thug who used to carry guns and rob people. And then I got saved. And so when I got saved, I came into it like I was a battle rapper. So I used to just try to trash people. I would just be like 16 bars and I would just try to murder you. And so when I got signed to Warner and Word, it was like, hey, so our demographic is about 30 to 35-year-old white ladies that drive minivans. We laugh about it. The soccer mom. That's the demographic. So you have to learn how to write shorter raps. You have to learn how to do melody, sing. You have to learn to do all these things. And that's the only way it's going to really connect. So it was very interesting for me to have to switch it up, to go from a street kid to now I have to do this thing. And so once I got into it, I got used to it, and I was like, oh, and I found myself slowly getting more vanilla, right? And I would have to change lyrics. I would have to change certain things. And after a while, it started bothering me because I was like, man, this is not me. It's really not me. And I don't understand why these people keep calling this Christian music. I couldn't wrap my mind around it because there's no other genre that's labeled like that. There's no such thing as Muslim music or Buddhist music or anything like that of the sort. So I was confused as to why we labeled it in such a way. And it wasn't until I lost my voice. It was on my Blanca already left, Pablo was gone. And I remember telling God, I don't need to do this anymore. You do know this, right? The only reason I'm here is for the people. But anytime you want to make this end, I'm okay with it. And I ended up getting vocal nodes on my throat, and I couldn't any longer sing. So I went on vocal rest for 6 months, and I couldn't talk. And it was in that time that I realized who I was, like really was in God and in Jesus. And I remember him telling me that there's nothing I'm going to be able to do that's going to be better than just receiving the fact that I'm his son. That's like my greatest accomplishment. And so when I like leaned into that, that's when all this other nonsense went away. I just stopped caring. I call it my hippie Jesus movement. I was all about trees and flowers and birds. And I was like, wow, Jesus loves me no matter what any of these people say. And I just stopped caring about anything and everything. And that led me to creating content like Nights at the Round Table, which really is just a deconstructionist podcast. Like we're deconstructing all the stuff that we've been sold. And it's been amazing.
That it's I haven't dived into too many of the long sessions, but the little 1-minute clips you keep throwing over, I'm like, man, I feel like we're too. I really connected with what you're saying there as my transition from a film director and producer and wanting to be in the Christian entertainment space, but not fitting in ever as a filmmaker, because I've never really loved the drama genre, which again goes back to the demographic that 35 white women, and and then coming in, having God say, "Hey, you're supposed to do comedy. You're supposed to go deep, get in deep." And I was just like, I had this experience, same like you. Like I'm like, oh, Jesus loves me. I'm a child of God. Wait a minute, I was trying to be an adult of God, and there are no adults of God. There are only children.
Yeah. No, I feel you.
It's really beautiful what you're saying there. Just be like when you kind of step back and let go and be like, I don't need to do this. I don't need to do this in the way that it's being prescribed.
Well, it's the funny thing is just that when you're doing this music, you think you're doing it for the people, and that's your heart's intention. And you think that the people listening to you, their primary concern is reaching lost people. You think that. And then once you do something that crosses their belief system that is for the lost people, you see how quickly they take that support back. And you find out that most of your fan base is really just self-serving. Like they're not listening to your music and being like, you know what? I didn't like this, but I guarantee you somebody who doesn't know God is going to love this. And this is going to pull them in. They don't look at it like that. They look at it like, I don't think this is Christian. This is not talking to me like it's Christian. So I'm going to deem it non-Christian. They don't care who it's for, who is written about. They can care less. It's about feed me, feed me, feed me. And if I do not think it's Christian, it is not Christian. And I'm not going to be afraid to tell you this, because it is my duty as a Christian to police you or keep you accountable. And I always laugh. I'm like, stranger, it's literally a juxtaposition for you who do not know me to keep me accountable. You see it in the Bible, but you forget that in biblical days, these people lived with each other. They weren't following each other on Instagram. They were following each other on the road of Emmaus. They were like on the road following each other. So when they did something wrong or dumb or said something, they were there so they can keep each other accountable. You who live in Tennessee or in Iowa or wherever the heck they live, trying to keep me accountable based off of a 50-second clip on Instagram is like hilarious to me, because you don't have a relationship with me to even speak into my life. So this is like the world that we've created. It's sad to me.
It's interesting. There's a perspective, like you said, but there's a perspective of like, hey, if it's meant to be outreached, if you're gonna go do ministry in Spain, you're gonna translate it into Spanish, and not just Spanish. You're gonna translate it into Spain Spanish, not Mexican Spanish or Puerto Rican Spanish.
Correct.
Spain Spanish. And so the words that you use, the dialect, and to make sure that they know you're real, you're going to use some words that you might not use in English language the way you might use them in English language, or do some cultural things, And so I think that that's an interesting I see the same thing as, when I came into this, into Funny&Amen, I was like, all right, let me make a movie for the kids of creation. And I was just like, they like comedy. They're young. They just want to laugh and enjoy. I looked at, your music and other people's Family Force 5 music. Who are the hot newsboys, DC Talk? Who are the hot topics? It wasn't like people that were getting in deep and getting into drama. They were giving entertainment, but giving that message in entertainment. And I was like, if I do that in film, it's not going to show up as a drama. It's going to show up as something more entertaining. And you start pitching what the audience wants, like what the non-Christian audience wants, or what the Christian kids audience wants in film. And people were like, but that's not what we're getting away from the 35-year-old woman. And you're like, well, all right, that we made stuff for her. Now we're trying to make something else. God's telling me to make something else for these people.
It's either or. You can't do both. You really can't, because whenever you try, and that's what I think our music was trying to represent. It was really trying hard to reach people that were lost and at the same time serve the church. But no matter how hard we tried, it just, and we had success. So I'm not mad at it. I'm just saying there was always a hater. There was always a litany of people that were trying to say that we weren't Christian enough. And I think that was the thing that upset me the most, is I edited so many lines. I remember my label telling me, hey, we need to change this line, or we need to change this line. And I edited them to vernacular that we don't even talk like. Like I remember on my first record, I had a line that said, bump it hard in your whip, right? And so what that means in layman's terms is play it loud in your car. So they thought it sounded sexual. So I had to say, play it loud in your whip. And I'm like, we don't talk like that. Like nobody I know talks like that, like at all. And so I couldn't even listen to the song. I could not listen to it because it was so unauthentic. And I remember still getting grief for the song. Oh, this song isn't Christian enough. It doesn't say Jesus enough. And I'm like, why'd I change the lyric? Why'd I change any of these lyrics? They're still going to look at me like I am ungodly because I'm not saying Jesus enough. And it's interesting of what you said, because it's something that I tell people all the time. I feel like we've done a really good job at Americanizing the Bible. So when we look at the scriptures, we read it through absolute American eyes. We don't take the nuance of culture. We don't take the fact that it's Hebrew and it's Greek. We don't do any of that. When we see the word curse in there, we think automatically, well, how do Americans use the word curse? Oh, that means saying shit, fuck, that's cursing. In the Bible, when you look it up in the Greek, it meant actual, like a curse upon you. Like you will never succeed in your life. That is a curse. Like what Jesus did to the fig tree. You will no longer bear fruit. That is a curse. But we cannot step away from the fact that this Bible to us represents American Christianity. So we're going to read it through those eyes, and without the idea of culture. So like when you're telling me like what's funny to you, there's an American funny, and then there's a European funny, and there's a lot of things in Europe that they don't deem as crass, they don't deem as disrespectful, they're not offended by it. I grew up in Germany, so when it comes to nudity, when it comes to quote unquote profanity, all that stuff was normal. I saw it on billboards, I saw it on public TV. We just grew up in a different culture. No one was looking at it and saying, oh, that is crass, this is that. So you really have to be careful when you start saying, oh, that's offensive, when it's like, to who? Like, who are you talking about? And these words that you're saying are bad. You do understand that they're different to other people. So like I was researching language, and I was like, in America, we say the word fanny. And fanny in America is a cute way to say a baby's bottom. But then I went to England, and if I said fanny over there, and that's a derogatory, that's a dirty word. That's the equivalent of saying pussy to a girl. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So if I say like your fanny, I'm saying to them, I pussy. So I was like, whoa, it's really cute in America, and it's really vulgar in London. So who's right? Who's right? Am I going to say, because I'm the American guy, oh, we have rights on the Bible, so we're right, you're crass, not us. Yeah. Your word is right. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's very prideful to then start saying that the language is now ours. Like we have a monopoly on interpretation, on language, on what is offensive, on what is crass, on what is all these things that the Bible is saying. When it's like, bruh, I guarantee you, if we found out what the Jewish people thought was crass or offensive, we could not uphold that because their laws and tradition were way stricter than ours.
Yeah.
So if we really want to get into the Bible, let's find out what the Jewish people thought was not cool and then try to live by that. You know what I'm saying? If not, what you are doing is essentially adapting this Jewish tradition to your culture, and then every culture has to do it according to their culture.
Well, I think that we do that. Is that us as humans, or is that us as Americans? I mean, I think that you look at in the Bible, you look at like the Jews and the Samaritans, or the Jews and the Gentiles, or vice versa, the Gentiles and the Jews. You know, like everybody is looking at each other and judging each other. And here comes this guy, Jesus, that like is taking his boys to Samaria to hang out with this woman at a well who's, you know, she's questionable. Her morality is seriously questionable. And he's like, hey, let's join in and worship the Spirit together. You know, like let's talk about this. Let's interact. And it's driving people to question themselves.
Yes.
Which I think is which is so important. Like if you can make that music or make that film for that 35-year-old white female, can you get them to look in the mirror? And not just get them to be like, we're awesome. You know, that's the challenge, because like no one really goes into something and says, today I'm going to look in the mirror and I'm going to make myself better, or recognize that I'm
you can't. It only
short
works when your ideology is crashed. So when you and Americans, the problem with us, and I love us, I love our country, but we have always deemed ourselves as the people, like we're the junk on a global scale. Everybody wants to come here. Our music is permeated through the world. Our stars are bigger, you know, all that stuff. In a global presence, America, we think we are the people. So if anybody's going to witness, or if anybody's going to be a missionary, you don't think about other countries sending people here. We're sending people to them because we're doing it right. And I laugh because I'm like, I think we're better at rule keeping and at nationalism than we are at serving Jesus.
Yeah.
That's my personal opinion. I think we've gotten really good.
I think you're right. You see it in some of the, like you said, the Christian nationalism that's out, that we have elevated the kingdom of America equal to, maybe slightly above, the kingdom of God.
Well, I think it's because we've been sold on it. I don't blame us initially, but growing up, it's like America's the best. USA's pictures like Rocky against, you know, Ivan Drago, you know, like America against Russia, we're better, you know, like all these nationalism like things. And it's good to be super proud of your country. Like that's not a bad thing. I'm like hella proud of America. But when we start church policing the world and trying to conform everyone to the way we do things, then that's when I feel like, oh man, I think we've gone a little bit too far. And when we start policing each other without the idea of culture, then I think we're taking it a little bit too far. Like I really wish we can take ourselves less serious, but I don't think we can, because how our society deems success, it's all based on numbers and being able to calculate. So if you're a successful Instagrammer, it's because you have a lot of followers. If you are a successful podcaster, it's because you have a lot of downloads. If you are a successful person, it's because you make a lot of money. So our society is based on rules that we can see and measure. So when we get a religion that says all of that does not matter, you cannot earn this, you cannot be good enough, you cannot do anything to earn the love of Christ. You just have to accept it. We cannot be okay with that. How am I going to know
there's no gold stars for there's no gold stars for just being a son, a daughter, a child of God.
It's literally, how are we going to know who's going to hell or not? We have to be able to tell people. If we don't know who's going to hell, then how do we know we're good? We have to be able to tell these people, hey, y'all are going to hell. Y'all are going to hell. You guys don't believe in what I believe in. You're going to hell. So then that makes me feel better about myself, because now I know who's going to hell.
It's they you know what's funny is we call it a personal relationship with Jesus, but we have to wear it on our sleeves and and force on other people and force them to have a personal relationship with Jesus. Like, I don't think that's part of the reason for this show. Is I grew up, in a pretty Christian bubble. I had a 35-year-old mom who questioned me about my
sure.
But what was interesting is that getting out of that and getting into the film industry in the Philadelphia, New York markets, like my first the first film I worked on out of Christian college, was this movie called Surrender Dorothy, about a guy who takes his heroin addict roommate and turns him into a woman. And it's like a whole transgender horror film. And I'm like, whoa, hey, I didn't learn about this in Christian school. And what was fascinating is to be like, all right, these are my people now. We're making art together. I'm just helping them make their art. They're going to eventually help me make my art. And how do I relate to them? I can't dive in assuming and I can tell them who I think Jesus is and have these conversations. And I did. I got, I'd show up at rap parties and people would be like, well, I guess you don't want any beer. And I'm like, says who?
Yeah.
This cross is not like an anti beer thing.
Sure.
I'm like, I don't get addicted to that stuff. If you give me the chocolate, I'll eat up all the chocolate on the craft service table. But
sure.
But it's interesting that we make these we make these rules for ourselves, and then people see these rules and their first thing is like, well, you're living this this lifestyle that you have said no to certain things.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not, I love Jesus, but I've not committed to the rules that other people have put on me or that you're putting on me. So let me be me and tell you who I think this guy Jesus is. And I want to know who you are and who you think Jesus is, or who you think
sure
your God is. Or if you don't think there is a God, let's talk about that, because that's fascinating to me. That's a faith system that I'm curious about. I want to learn about. I want to learn about you. I want to get to know you, Manny. I want to get to know whoever's sitting across my table and figure out what I want to know, and not just tell you what is true, because I'm honestly still trying to figure it out myself.
Well, it's the ultimate form of ego. Like, the people that talk to me they know what these scriptures say and they know how to use it against me. I ask them, I'm like, do you speak fluently in the Greek and Hebrew? And they always ask me, well, why are you bringing that up? I'm like, because that's what the book was written in. Like, are you telling me that you're 1,000% sure that your interpretation is right and I am 1,000% wrong? Is this what you're telling me? And 99.9% of the people have never read a single word in Greek or Hebrew. Never. Yep. They don't know the original language. They don't. And that's not me trying to one up them. I'm just seriously wondering, what makes you so confident? What makes you so scared of what I'm doing in my life that you feel that you need to come at me the way you do? And I was reading this book by Richard Rohr, and he said it seemed that with law and sin, we wanted to mass produce it and enforce it. We were looking for enforcement more than transformation. We wanted to make sure that we can tell people what was good and what was bad so that we knew where we stood with God. Because it was way too hard to just trust that it's not by works, but it's by the grace that he's given us. And I already know that people, once they hear that, they're triggered. Oh yeah, it's not by works, but faith faith is works. So if you're not doing the works, then you don't have real faith. And I'm like, bruh, I get it. I'm not saying live like a freaking heathen who hates God. I am saying
no more robbing. You can't go back to robbing, Manny. All right.
Yeah, you can try your best to do everything right, and you can try your very darndest to be sinless, and it will never be anything but rags to God. That's what Paul says, and I think there's some things that we've gotten wrong. So I think
when it comes to the verse where he actually uses the word scubula, which is which a lot of people interpret as a slang word of the time, that and I think that the point is not the point with artists, and Paul was a wordsmith artist. We read Romans, you're like, this guy's like logic. Yeah. Logic and words are coming across so beautifully. Even when they're translated out of his original language, there's still the poetry and the logic are still coming through. But in that verse, he's talking to a people who are not inside this religious subculture, and he's using a street word, for dog doo-doo shit.
Yeah.
And he's saying, in comparison, God is so far up here. I'm like, my hand is out of the frame. It's untouchable.
Yeah.
And this is so far down here. It's you don't want to touch it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that like a word like crap, Americanized words for poop, like crap or doo doo, or there's a time and place to use that for humor. You were use doo doo or poo poo or whatever.
Yeah. But
there's a time, and there's a teary-eyed time where you let go of all phobias of what you'll be thought of, and you use the words that are visceral.
I agree. I tell people all the time, I'm like, if you're telling me it's the words, if this is what you're judging me on, then what you're essentially saying is all I have to do is say the right thing and you will believe that I'm a believer. Think about what you're trying to get me to believe. You're trying to get me to say that if I just say the right thing, you're mad at me because I'm the 4 negative reviews on my podcast. Why does he have to use profanity? And I'm like, there are times where I just want to use the word that is exactly in my mind. This is what I'm honestly thinking. And I don't think Jesus is up there like this. Oh my gosh.
God's like, oh, Manwell was honest with me.
I'm like, you're thinking it, bruh. And I tell people, I'm like, imagine writing the Bible today and not understanding the nuance of culture and language. So if I were to say, Kevin, bless you, bro. Somebody wrote that down. Manwell said, Kevin, bless you, bro. Oh my gosh, Manny is a Christian. Look at him blessing Kevin. But anybody who heard it and the nuance is like, oh, I think he's being sarcastic.
Wait, is in like a movie script in parentheses? Does it say side-eyed in there, or like
like that's what I'm saying? And then if I said something like, so that would be written out. So my guy next to me would write that out, and everybody who read it for thousands of years to come would be like, what a nice guy Manny was. He was trying to bless Kevin, right? With no nuance. They're just reading the words off the page. But then I said something like, Kevin, you're the shit, bro. We all know in this culture that I'm saying, Kevin, you're awesome. But if my scribe wrote it down, Manwell said, Kevin, you're the shit, bro. And somebody just read it, they'd be like, oh my gosh, he must hate Kevin. He just said that he was feces.
Are you familiar with King's Kaleidoscope song, The Prayer?
No.
Oh. After this, I'm gonna send you a
worship song and drop the F-bomb.
Yeah.
I didn't even hear it, and I already liked the song. I was like, thanks, bruh. I've never heard it, but kudos to you.
No, but you'll love the song. They wisely done. They do a non-explicit version. But the first time I heard it, I was actually like with a bunch of Christian guys developing this movie, and I wasn't sure I was supposed to be there or not. We're all trying to find our way in the world.
Yeah.
we're all trying to divine, we believe in a higher power, we're trying to like communicate with him, and for better or worse, sometimes he does a bad job communicating back to me, or maybe it's me.
Yeah,
Probably me. But this one day, I'm with these like group of guys. We're developing this movie, and this one guy said, "Hey, I want you to hear this song, and I want you to know what you think of it." And this song came on, and the lyric is, "I'm out here where the fear is fucking violent."
Mm.
And I'm listening to this, and I'm like, it hit me. Like I'm in this place. I'm looking for, like, after this end of the song was over, and you got to hear the song because the whole thing is a prayer from a broken human, to God. And that's where the F-bomb's dropped. It's not dropped God responding, but there is a response, which is amazing. And what's interesting is like just hearing this song where the artist, when he was writing, he wrote it. It was like, he's like, I have to deliver this way because this is where it's visceral, the prayer. And when I heard that visceralness, I was like weeping, and I walked out, and I was like, I'm not supposed to be in this. God has given me a thing to do 3 years ago, and I have not done it because of fear. And that word, that presentation of my fear, and using the most visceral word for it, like I was like, I'm not here because I'm causing more violence because I'm not stepping out in faith where God told me to go. And so it's interesting where, there's opportunities. We don't all, the soccer mom is not going to want to hear that word,
right?
She doesn't want it. But Kevin Hackenberg, Manwell, perhaps other people, perhaps are going to respond viscerally to a visceral thing, just like the Apostle Paul uses a visceral word. And we've been talking about it for 2,000 years.
It's just
hopefully driving us closer to God.
It's not even look, I try to get people to understand, man, this communication thing is all about intention. It cannot be about just the words. It can't. Because even God says it. He's like, man looks at the outward appearance. Like, I just look at what's inside. Because there's people going around. I think the irony, this is the most hilarious thing. And if people would lower their pride to actually get this, to actually understand that what the Bible meant a curse was this thing of you pronouncing a judgment, a negative judgment, like you will never be successful. You are going to hell. These are curses on people. It's what the Bible was talking about. I think there's so much irony in how many people curse me for cursing. They will curse my life. They will literally pronounce my judgment of eternity, where I will spend eternity. They will pronounce that I am no longer a son of God. They will literally tell me this is demonic. That when you brought up Wild Ones, when they saw the video, there's people like, this is demonic. This is not of God. They literally cursed me up and down because of imagery or because I said the word damn. And I'm like, you don't know this because this entire interaction is predicated on your ego. It's not because you love me. You don't care about my soul. You don't want to know where I'm going to end up. Because if you did, you would hit me up on the DM and be like, hey, Manny, I just heard this song. I just really want to know like where you're at. Like, where did it come from? Why'd you make it? I'm just really concerned with where you're at, because I was a fan of Group One and now you're making this kind of music. So I just want to know where you're at. No judgment, no whatever. Just let me know. And if they would have did that, and some did, I would explain to him, thank you so much for hitting me up. This song was written for a CW show about monsters and vampires. I do sync music now, so I write for TV and film. So this song would not have made sense if I would have said, I'm a wild one, I'm a beast at night, but don't worry, Jesus will come and save my life. How is a CW show gonna put that into an episode when the vampires aren't trying to get saved by Jesus? They're trying to be vampires, and I'm trying to write a score to the vampire show. And
Yeah.
these people want me to write, oh, Jesus is going to save all the vampires, and that will make it Christian. And I'm just like, wow, this is insanity. This is where we're at. This is the type of people that are attempting to dictate over my life who I am. They are actually cursing me, thinking that I'm the one that's cursing. And so when I realized that, I just started like, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they do. Like, they really don't. And they're not concerned with knowing what they're doing. They're not concerned with hearing me out. They could care less on how I feel, what I'm thinking. They just don't. It's not important to them, because they did not come onto my page to actually love on me. They're not a sister or a brother in Christ that really wants me to be okay with Jesus. They want to make themselves feel okay. And this is something that God showed me through all the hate. He was like, what they say about you, Manny, shows more about how they see me than how they see you. Because
I'll tell you the story that how I got into this, jumping out of my other career, which I'm still doing as a, director, producer, whatever, of film and commercials and stuff. But coming to this was me recognizing that I was the biggest hypocrite in the room. And that's a hard pill to swallow. But what I realized in that time, I had someone who wasn't a Christian educate me about this concept of the dark side of the light chasers, where that if you see something that bothers you about somebody else, and this is what I was doing. I was at a church, and the leadership there was not leading well. And what I didn't realize is the 3 years I was complaining about them is because I was looking past the mirror that showed me things that were worse. The things I was pointing at them and saying, you guys are bad leadership, you guys aren't stepping out in faith, and you guys aren't doing this. When God finally opened my eyes, I was like, oh, the reason I recognized their bad leadership is because I saw it every day in the mirror.
Yep.
And the funny story on my personal born again moment after this was that I was judging them numerically. Hey, their leadership equals like, $9,000 of debt that their organization, this church, has gotten into. And when I finally went back to my organization and started like measuring the debt, measuring the leadership by the same measuring stick, I was 20 times worse than they were.
Wow.
And that moment, I laughed out loud. I'm like, God, that's hilarious. I'm like, thank you for educating me on what bad leadership looks like. And so I was ready to measure myself. And all of a sudden, Manny, like the attitude towards this guy is ruining Christianity because he's a bad leader or making vampire music.
Yeah.
It turned into like love. It turned into this overwhelming love to say like, that guy is a messed up human being. I'm worse.
Yeah, man.
Manny is a messed up human being. I'm worse. I want to love Manny and let Manny be like, hey, let me reach out on DM. Hey, man, your leadership, I noticed something that you're doing this much bad. And I noticed you're doing it this splinter size bad because I'm doing it this much bad.
Sure. Yeah.
Don't be like me, Manny. That's what people should be saying to you. They should be like, hey, man, you're going down this direction. Don't be like me, Manny.
When did it become so scary or bad that that we were afraid to admit that we were just as bad, that we're all like in need of grace? Like, we really, really are in need of grace. And I think the hardest thing for me to do is, I know how much I stink. Like, I know how much I'm just trying to fight the good fight and trying to make it, trying to become a better person, not for the love of God. I already have that, but just so that I can respect myself. I don't have enough time of the day to stop working on myself, to then go online, find somebody's statement, and then trash them for their bad doing. I'm like, where do you find the time? Do you honestly feel that your stuff is all together and you're like, you know what? You woke up that day and you're like, I got all my shit together today. I think I'm going to go on somebody's page and tell them how they don't have their shit together. That's what I'm going to do. I would never forget the day that I gave up on the Christian industry, and not on the people. I love the people. I'm talking about the industry that is feeding it, and that there's a remnant of people that are fully bought into the Christian way of living, the mass Christianity. I remember me and my wife were doing a tour. And my wife is, obviously we're believers, but she does only mainstream secular shows. Rarely would ever step inside of a church. We do not do church shows for her because we don't want the drama. And honestly, they're not going to pay her what she gets. So we're doing a tour of a record that I wrote for her character Bunquequi. And there were all clubs, theaters, amazing, killing it, selling out shows everywhere. I'm still in Group 1 Crew at this point. We do a show in San Francisco and sell it out, right? I post a video about the recap of the night. And that thing got over 200-300 comments, all of which mainly saying, I can't believe you're out there in clubs. I can't believe you're out there doing this. You're not a believer. How can you be loving Jesus and doing this, right? Just went at me, so much so that it got all the way back to my label, so much so that I was about to release my last record, and a big artist that if I said her name, you would know, was going to be on my record and then bailed, got off of my record because of this post. And I was like, really? And this was the irony. This is when I knew that these people had no voice from God telling him to say this, because that was the same show that afterwards I was outside preaching to about 30 people, gay, straight, hate Jesus, 30 people by my bus telling them about the love of God, people crying, people receiving Jesus on the same post that the church literally went in on me. And that's when I knew. I was like, God, they're not hearing from you. This is
you need my wife to write your post, because the other day I did a thing. You're like, she'd be like, you just need to preface it. You need to preface it that this is all ministry, you know. But I guess it's very interesting in the entertainment field. Like you dive in because you're like, hey, we have to collaborate and be artists, and some people want to, you know, the Christian audience isn't ready for Bunquequi, but I am.
You have to preface. I stopped. Like I literally was like, I will no longer be controlled by these people, because at the end of the day, they don't love me. They love what they believe. They love who they are. They love what they think is Jesus, but they don't love me. The second that I step out of line and what they believe, they will cancel me so fast. They're not interested in my life, and nor are they interested.
There's a cancel culture inside where a lot of Christian conservative are against cancel culture, but there's a cancel culture inside of Christianity for sure.
Oh my God, if you don't measure up, you're done. You're done. And that's when I was like, Jesus, you know, the number one blessing that he ever gave us was being able to succeed and make money outside of Christianity. That was the day that I was truly free. It's crazy to think that, because before it's like you're eating off of you're you know, if you're a preacher, you can't say the wrong thing. They stop inviting churches, all of a sudden you can't eat, and your kids don't, so you got to stay in line. I remember the day where I was like, babe, I think we are financially free outside of the church. Then it like was really like, okay, Jesus, what do you really want to say now? What do you really want to say that isn't going to may piss these people off? Because now I'm not afraid that these people are going to bail on me, and all of a sudden I'm going to be. And isn't that crazy to even admit?
You inspire me, man, because I've never been. My career's never been inside the church, and now that I've been born again through this this hilarious hypocritical experience, I'm actually trying to say, like, how can I honor God? And every time I put out something, they're like, well, that's questionable. So I'm like, oh, I can just not do it. I can just not go there. Just go wherever God tells me to go.
No, just be you. Don't even tell it where to go. Just put it out. It's not your job to tell it where to go. Your voice will find hearers, will find listeners. That's one thing I realized. I was like, bruh, your job is to create and do the possible. God will do the impossible. He will let it land wherever it lands. I tell every artist that's going into the Christian music field, I was like, the first thing you do is when you get money, buy a house, buy real estate, invest in stock, do something where your money is not coming from your music, because I promise you, you are going to be under their control. And the second you step out of line, they will whip you back so fast that you're going to think, what the hell? I thought I was just trying to sing for Jesus and what he was putting in my heart, but that's not right. I'm trying to sing for those 5 slots that K-Love makes available every week. On. And if I don't get those slots, then my music wasn't Christian enough. I have friends that think this. They literally bailed out of the industry because they couldn't get a #1 spot and they thought their song wasn't Jesus enough, without knowing, bruh, that's not how it works. Do you understand that these radio people, they play your song for 30-year-old white women and they play about 10 to 15 seconds. If they don't like those first 10 to 15 seconds, they don't put it on the radio station. That's how.
Well, you warned me. You asked me like how long we going to go for, and I'm realizing now why Nights at the Round Table was 2 hours long, because you got some amazing things spilling out. But if we segue. They're gonna be like this. They're gonna think Kevin just like went totally off this year. He's not even going to the questions. I want to go to the questions.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry.
No. No, it's encouraging me to be like, I can call every time I lose a guest, I can call Manwell. He'll have something to say. We'll just get on there for another.
Yeah, man.
By the way, Storm Rhodes, good friend, says you got to sing for that 35-year-old white woman.
Got to sing.
Got to sing.
Becky with the good hair.
All right. So this is the part of the show where I asked the one reason I started this podcast is I want to know from all my guests, Christian, non-Christian, atheist, Jew, Gentile, what have you, transgender even. What do you like the bus, Manwell? What do you think of Jesus? What does Manwell Reyes think of Jesus?
Now more than ever, I've settled into how beautiful a relationship with him is. I feel like he's the most understanding, the most not scared, the most okay with the frailty of me. All the things that I was trying to hide from him and pretend like I didn't want him to see, he's like more than okay with my shadow side, with my dark side. And I no longer hide from him. I don't think that I'm undeserving of anything. I think there's momentary times where the enemy tries to get me to believe that, or even my own psyche will get me to believe that I don't deserve anything good. But then I'm always reminded by him, but when were you good? You know, like, and not that you're a piece of crap, because I love you. And innately, when I created you, I knew you were good. But there's this idea of being good, that it can somehow be achieved. And so to me, Jesus is the epitome of just understanding. Like, it's different now. Me and him rock way differently now.
Question for you. Next question. I've kind of reversed the order this year because this is the question that interests me the most.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a personal paranormal, spiritual, or supernatural experience?
Yeah, with Jesus when I first got saved. And I got saved at a church camp. And mind you, at this point, I'm still like heavy thuggery, like just straight thug. I only went to the church camp because they told me that there was going to be a lot of pretty girls there and somebody paid for me, right? So that's the only reason why I went to this church camp. I was like, cool, there's going to be pretty girls. I'm going to show up, right? And so I went, And it was in that moment that I heard the pastor gave like a call, right? And I'm telling you, I'm not saved at this point. And so he gives a call to action. The entire place, the spirit falls so hard in that place, that the entire place, and I'm talking about everybody who's been to church and church camp or church like conferences, you always got people that are super into it, and then there's people in the back not into it, and you got the worship team still singing even though the spirit of God is falling. Then you got people in the lobby selling stuff and they're still good. The spirit hasn't reached outside the doors. Okay, this was a fully transcended experience where everyone in the lobby, no one was playing an instrument. Preacher was not preaching. Every single person was face down on the ground crying. I was still unsaved. So the things that are going through my head was, this is crazy. And my mouth was saying out loud, I'm not worthy, I'm not worthy, I'm dirty, I'm dirty. So I'm freaking out. And then I see Jesus's legs walking through the auditorium. And that's why I kept saying, okay, the most I know about Jesus is my big old gold Jesus piece on my necklace. This is the most I've ever heard about this guy. But I knew something in me, which is what makes me believe when the scripture says that within us, there's a measure of faith that we're born with that can identify, oh, this is creator. This is him. I've never met him before. I've never read about him, but this is him. And so I knew it was Jesus. Even though I'm sitting there cussing out my mind in my head, I'm like, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. I'm dirty. I'm dirty. And the second I could get up, I ran to the altar and never looked back since. That was my one paranormal experience. So happened to be with Jesus.
You said you saw his feet?
His feet. I saw his feet.
Were you like looking down, or you just like saw a pair of shoes? You wear Nikes or what?
A vision. No, bare feet, like dark colored skin, white robe, like that whole thing. And I wasn't looking up. My eyes were closed. I knew he was walking through the room. And the reason I know how real it was to me is because, again, I wasn't saved. I wasn't born in the church. I didn't know to tell people that this would make me seem in a Christian circle semi-quasi cool. Like when you have vision or people are like, I died and I saw heaven. Really? What is it like? I didn't know to be that way. I'm still at this point like, this shit is crazy. What the fuck? I'm just like not liking it at all. But I knew it was him. And then when we got up, the pastor was like, run to the altar, because I was in a Pentecostal church. Time to get baptized in the Spirit. I was like, what is that? I don't know what that is, but I just saw Jesus, so I'm running up. So I run up, not knowing what baptism in the Spirit, speaking in tongues. I don't know any of these things.
Yeah.
I get baptized in the Spirit, not knowing what I'm doing. I don't know at this point. So much so that when I leave, I'm like, okay, I'm speaking in this weird language. This is really weird to me. Can I do it anywhere? So I'm in the bathroom going number one, and I'm thinking, can I do it here? I mean, if I could do it, can I do it here? So I start praying in tongues in the bathroom. Somebody comes out of the stall that was going number two, and he's just laughing at me. And I'm like, literally just like, bro, I'm sorry. I didn't know. This is my first time ever coming to something like this. I was just seeing if this was real or not. And that was like my first church camp experience. That's how I got saved. It was wild. Never turned back.
I want to put that in a movie. I want to put the both scenes, but the bathroom scene for sure.
Couldn't make this up. I couldn't make this up.
Manwell, what brings you peace?
Peace for me. Acceptance. My wife calls it radical acceptance. When I can easily identify the things that are out of my control, brings me a lot of peace. I spend a lot of time trying to control everything. And then I realize, why do I want to be God so much? I'm like trying to fight him for his job. There's a lot of pressure that comes with that job, because in order for me to like want to control everything, I'd have to know how everything was going to play out. And since I don't know that, that's where stress enters in. So it's much easier and realistic for me to admit what I don't know and embrace what I do know. So currently,
Yeah.
very factual things, what's in front of me. I have a hope for things, but what brings me peace is that I'm not in control of everything. And if I believe what this book says, my fate is not up to me. He is the author and finisher of my fate. So I just I stopped doing two things, thinking that I can control everything and then thinking I'm right. I will no longer say I'm right. I will no longer say I'm right. Because when I first got married, I was this legalistic, I hate gay people. They're not going to heaven. Then I get married to a girl who half of her family is gay. Half. And that's not an exaggeration. It's not a hyperbole. Half of the family is gay. And here I am on all the family events, just rubbing shoulders with a bunch of gay people, which I never hung out with before, didn't know what I was going to do. And all of a sudden I'm falling in love with every single one of them. And so now fast forward 10 years later, me and my freaking brother-in-law are sending each other Jesus quotes, and he's coming to church with us. And you know what I'm saying? And I'm meeting people that do worship and that are gay, that sing for Jesus and are gay. And I'm like, you know what? I don't know nothing. I don't know nothing. I'm not going to say I'm right ever again, because I got a gay friend who's literally telling me a vision, a prophecy that God gave him and saw the fruition of it. So everyone else who is super confident in what they think they know everything. I'm like, bro, when you start seeing something like this and you can't refute it, it's like, I don't know anything. So I will never say again, I'm right. I will never try to control everything. It's just not for me. I'm not God.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's a healthy, if the people who are called by my name will humble themselves, I will heal their land. Like, what's interesting, the humility has to come first before the healing.
Mm-hmm.
And that scripture is quoted all the time. I love that scripture. But if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves, there's a prerequisite. We all want to see the America, the earth, whatever your country you're listening to this in.
Mm-hmm.
We want to see it healed of coronavirus. We want to see it healed of whatever. We got to humble ourselves and say, I don't know. That was, I'm with you, man. Like, I don't know. I got some opinions. I read the scripture. I got an opinion.
Yeah.
As much as the next gay guy does, as much as the next transgender, as much as the next straight, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, Latino, Christian does.
You have an opinion. It's so beautiful that you said that, bro, because most people will make you believe that you have to be all-knowing, and it's not an opinion, it's a fact. And when I think about it, I had a friend that went from Christianity into this like really, really hardcore sect of Israelite, right? And so they live by the law, and they believe that that there's a remnant of black people that are the true Jews, and theirs are the ones that are going to go to heaven. And it's intense. And I'm not,
right.
I love them. Right. But when we had a conversation about it, it was about, he was so well versed in scriptures, and they are. And I'm like, bro, I'm not gonna try to argue you who's right or wrong. Here's what I'm going to ask. And this is what I ask every believer. I need you to look me in my face and tell me that even though this book was compiled, not at the time of Jesus, the earliest books we get is about 50, 60 years after he died. Okay. Just think about that. That's almost a full lifespan. Okay. And I'm not trying to
back then, 2 lifespans.
Right. I'm not trying to down the Bible, because I read it, love it. But what I'm trying to say is these are these people's recollections of what happened. And it's a beautiful book, and I get all of that. But again, this book was written in certain languages that most of us do not speak. So then my simple question is, are you so sure about your interpretation of all these scriptures that you could look me in my face and say without a shadow of a doubt, it doesn't matter if a scholar has been studying this book for 50 years, 60 years more than you. It doesn't matter that they're fluent in Greek and still have questions, or fluent in Hebrew and still discourse about the Bible. You, sir, who have been saved all of 15 years or however long you've been saved, you can look at me in my face and tell me 1000% certain that you are right about every single thing that you read and I am wrong if we disagree. If you can tell me that, no one has been able to say yes, because for them to say yes means that they have to be the most prideful, the most lying ass people that you have ever met to say that they know more than the scholars of the time who are still discussing this book. You don't know. So the reality is all you have is a really good guess. And all I have is a really good guess. You can't be 2% wrong. You're either right or you're wrong. So me and you are equally right. And this is to the highest scholar. And I think this is why it's so dope, because this is why Jesus is like for the people, because he's like, you don't need to know Greek and Hebrew. You don't. This whole book is summed up in this: love people, love God. You don't need to be a scholar in Greek or a scholar in Hebrew, because even that guy, the best that he has is a good guess. Now his guess is better than my guess, but it's still a guess.
He's an educated guess.
We're
educated guess.
50-50, bruh, because you can be 50% wrong. I can be 50% right. That's how we look at it. I'm like,
we're playing dice, man. We're like, oh, Yahtzee.
Laugh about who we see in heaven. I'm gonna laugh.
Oh, man, it's gonna be great. There's gonna be lots of laughter in heaven, and who we see is gonna be the biggest one. All right. So why are we here, man? Why are we here? Biggest question. Last question. Why are we here?
On this planet in a metaphysical sense, or me and you on this podcast?
Yeah, why are we here on this podcast?
I love it. I love that you reached out to me. I'm open for every conversation. As a global scale, on a metaphysical realm, or in a cosmic sense, based on our beliefs and what we tell each other, or what I believe why I'm here. I think the best answers I can say is to learn how to successfully love someone. I think that's really to learn how to successfully love people. And within that realm, I mean my wife. I mean those that hate me more so than those that love me. Because who cares about, it's easy to love people who love me, who think I'm the best. But how do I love the person that dislikes me or who is telling me I'm going to hell? Like, how do I love them? Because if I can learn to love them, then what can really hurt me? Who can hurt me at that point? What can you say that can ever bring me down? If I can find a way to not only love the person that hates me, but be able to step in their shoes and actually find common ground with them and be like, you know what, bro? I'm not even going to be mad at you. I can't be mad at you. At one point, I was doing the same thing you were doing to my own family, hating on them. So I hope one day you stick along long enough for us to have another conversation, and maybe you'll change your mind. Maybe you won't, but it doesn't matter. So I think I'm here to learn how to successfully love people.
I want to say, damn, that's a good answer.
Thanks, man.
Manwell Reyes, thank you so much, dude, for honoring me with this time. And yeah, man, it was really great hanging out with you, dude.
Yeah,
for
bro.
real.
Thanks for having
I
me.
want to do a shout out to Joey Frajanic, who originally introduced me to you a couple years ago. And
yeah, Jojo.
And yeah, man, we'll do this again sometime,
right? Are you in a city? Are you in Philly?
I'm in Philly today. I'm by East Coastal, so I split time between Philly and New York. But yeah, today this is the Red Curtain.
Yeah,
is in Kensington, Philadelphia. Yeah, so Joey lives. I haven't seen Joey in about 5 years, but he lives like 10 blocks away.
That's hilarious. I was at the first meeting. I don't know if you've ever been to the Block Church, but I was in the meeting to name the church, and the Block Church was my suggestion. I was like, bruh, this is what you got to call it. And he ran with it and made it something amazing. I'm like, bro, I'm so proud of you, bro.
Yeah. The Block Church is kicking butt here in Philly. If you're in Philly and want to go to a cool church, Block Church, or my church, City Life. But yeah, man, where do you go? Where do you guys attend somewhere out there in Los Angeles? You in LA?
We have one church, Pastor Torre and Sarah Jakes, TD Jakes' daughter. Those are the people. And then also Oasis, Julian Lowe. Those are the two places that I'm close with the pastor. So I kind of like keep a relationship, which is the first time, which is hilarious, that I've ever been that close. I was close to my pastor, Pastor Johnny in Orlando, Florida at Faith Assembly. Here, like we'll go to dinner, we'll hang out. I've had them on my podcast, so it's been dope. So One Church and Oasis Church are kind of the ones that we rock.
All right, dude. Well, thank you so much. I want to play some little outro music here for our friends. I want to give a big shout out to Derek Sander, who helped me put together the podcast and make it as successful and branded as awesome it is. First one, I think we did good. So, Manwell, thank you for being here. I'm super excited to have this conversation. All right. Peace out.